will take that as an okay. We thank you once again, each and every one of you and all of you together collectively, for the co-creation of this interaction. Let us begin with the understanding and the idea, the relationship between physical mind and higher mind, functioning as a whole person. Now, each and every one of you made a choice to experience physical reality, to live a physical life. When that choice is made from spirit, from the non-physical level, what you do, generally speaking, whether it be in full consciousness or automatically, is you'll begin to lay out a foundation in what might be referred to as a template level reality. A frequency, a domain of reality just above physical reality. What some might refer to as a lower astral realm. In this template reality, energy, vibrations are somewhat slower than the idea of higher spiritual realms, but not quite as slow, not quite as dense as physiological reality. Nevertheless, it's close enough so that it can be used as a template to set up certain scenarios to play out, to blueprint certain scenarios that will be experienced in the physical reality to come. By setting up these scenarios, these themes for exploration in the template reality, you thus create a kind of automatic function that allows you to focus on the experience and exploration of that theme when you are in physical reality. It's part of the creation of the consensus agreement that happens in the template level reality, where you all agree to create certain similar circumstances, certain similar conditions by which you will all experience physical reality. It's the level in which you all generally agree to the general rules by which you will play the physical reality game. Once then that has been established in template fashion and set into place, your consciousness then, in a sense, passes through that template on its way to physical reality, on its way to crystallizing yourself into physical materiality. And by passing through that template level, you take on the attributes of the general agreed upon reality. You start to imbue yourself and infuse your consciousness with a structure. You crystallize a particular structure that is representative of that reality in which you will have an experience. A similar analogy would be to you that you are deciding to go deep sea diving. And you must then prepare by putting on the proper wetsuit, putting on the proper diving apparatus, and your breathing equipment. You prepare yourself for the environment into which you are about to plunge. Thus then, as you lower yourself, regulate your air, so on and so forth, become accustomed to the deeper pressure below the sea, so too, in a sense, do you become more accustomed by this crystallization process to the idea of the experience of physicalizing yourself and the limitations that go with that. Now, as you thus then connect to the idea of the physical seed that is being born to create a bonding with the concept of a body, to crystallize your spirit into that physicality, you actually aid and assist in the formation of that embryonic form, imbuing it with many of the crystallization ideas you have brought with you as spirit, and you work with that embryonic body in your mother's womb to create the being, the personality structure that will best exemplify the themes that you chose to explore in the reality. While working in that sense with that embryonic structure, you will find that most of the template ideas, most of the somatic ideas that you will explore in physical reality, that you thus then crystallize into that embryonic body, are done after, on or after the 49th day of the existence of that embryo. Up to that point, the embryo structure does not have the capacity to lock in those template ideas, because what has not yet formed in the embryo is the necessary and essential and crucial pineal gland. Once the pineal gland exists, because it is in the brain the gateway and the doorway between higher and lower realities, it is necessary for it to be there in the embryo to function as the gland that incorporates those template ideas and thus then starts to arrange the idea of the neurology of the brain in such a manner and the cellular structure of the body in such a manner as to be conducive to the ideas and the themes that are being crystallized in that body. Once the embryonic form then is sufficiently organized to be a match for the frequencies that are representative of the kind of experiences and themes you have chosen to explore in physical reality, there then starts to become more and more and more a solid vibrational link between the idea of the physical form and the spirit form. Now, this will still be somewhat tenuous for quite some time. Even children that are born will have, generally speaking, anywhere from 3 to 7 years to decide if they actually wish to play out that physical life even longer, before the idea of the vibrational link between spirit and body becomes relatively cohesive and relatively unbreakable. But especially up to the age of 3, you will find that many spirits may have only wanted to experience a little tiny bit of physical reality, just want to, in a sense, get their so-called spiritual feet wet, but don't necessarily want to have a full lifespan. So you will find that many individuals who are still very young will simply choose one day to leave. This is not the only reason, but it is one of the major reasons for what many individuals on your planet call unexpected crib death. The idea also of what you might refer to as either miscarriage or abortion is also something that, in a sense, it all serves some spirit's purpose. So in that sense, doesn't need to be looked at in any kind of a judgmental way. As you further crystallize the embryonic form, and it starts to set up cellular structures and neurological pathways in the physical body that are representative of the kind of themes you will explore, what it also starts to create is the personality construct. The representation of the intelligence of the spirit, the consciousness of the spirit, will in a sense be mocked up in the body. It will have a template form of its own that is represented by the capacity for belief systems, emotions, and thought patterns and actions. This prismatic template in the brain is set up to receive certain kinds of information that are conducive to the expression of that spirit's choice of thematic experiences. Of course, when a child on your planet is born to its parents, it will, because it is still absorbing, still laying the foundations of that template, still crystallizing for a while, it will absorb all of the telepathic input of the parents, of the society. And as it locks into that, it will pick up on belief systems from the parents, from society, and begin to incorporate those into its matrix as well. Let us now rewind this, go back a little bit to where you first were forming from spirit that template reality. Aside from the mechanism we have now described of forming the physical side of the personality, the physical side of the person you will be in physical reality experience, At the same time, when you lay out that template, you also, from spirit, create a duality. You create not only the physical side, the physical mind, but you create the template called the higher mind that goes specifically with that person. So every person is a person in totality when they express the idea of physical mind and higher mind. That is what makes you a whole person capable of exploring the idea of physical reality. But the higher mind template that is formed by the spirit acts as the liaison between the physical mind and the higher levels of your own soul. Again, it is, by analogy, the individual still standing on the boat, helping the diver who has gone down below, making sure that they are given every support that they need, making sure they are still in communication, and helping to guide them from the surface in any way that they can by taking readings of what's going on around them and helping them in their exploration down below. So higher mind stays on the boat, physical mind goes deep sea diving. Now, once this relationship is established, then the idea is to get these two to work in concert, to get the physical mind and the higher mind to work in concert. Now, because your view deep under the ocean is limited, as it is when you go as a spirit deep into physical reality, the idea is to rely on the higher mind, the person on the boat, to be able to guide you to the horizon because they can see farther than you can. But you can always rely on the fact that the higher mind still up there on the surface on the boat and can, with the proper communication, guide the diver in the proper direction. Because you will experience a kind of disconnection from the surface, disconnection from the higher realm, it is important to rely on the communications of the higher mind for guidance. However, the paradox is that very often, especially in your history, diving deeply into physical reality has created the kind of disconnection and the kind of forgetfulness and the kind of limitation that allows you to not even remember you have had a higher mind. And therefore, you have created within yourselves, nevertheless, as part of your template, an urging within the physical persona to seek the higher mind. Because the higher mind knows, and the spirit knew when it formed the template, that it was highly likely the physical persona might get lost in the darkness. So it always gave the physical persona that one seed, that one spark, that urge to go toward the idea of the light, to go toward the idea of the higher mind, and to form that reconnection. This is expressed as the creative desire, the desire for love. That is what that is. The feeling of desiring love, the feeling of love, expressing of experiencing the seed that is created in the template that urges you back in that direction, urges you to reconnect with the higher self. The urge is there. It is always driving you to look for that which allows you to feel complete. And in many ways, when many of you are looking for things to allow you to feel complete, that's actually what you're looking for. You're looking for your connection to the higher mind. Now, the idea of the ego structure is basically this. It is simply for the purpose, its really only job is simply for the purpose of keeping you focused as a physical personality in your physical reality experience. Ego, in a sense, is like the diving mask that gives you the ability to have a clear view underwater so that things are not too murky, so that you can see, sort of, at least to some degree, what is ahead of you, where you are going. It creates the idea and reinforces the idea of the belief systems that are part and parcel of the template of your consciousness, of your personality structure that you have created, reinforces them so that those beliefs can be experienced as fully as possible. But when there is a degree of forgetting that exists to the extent that it has in your reality, very often, because of that sense of disconnection, because of that experience of disconnection, not that you're ever really disconnected because you cannot be, can forget that it's not actually the one in charge, can forget that it has a helpmate in the template reality called the higher mind, can forget that it is not doing this alone. And in suddenly finding itself in the experience of being alone, it starts to build up the idea of fear. It starts to reinforce belief systems in a way that perpetuates its existence beyond the necessary level. It starts to think that it's in charge of everything. The burden and the weight of the world is on its shoulders. The responsibility for everything that happens in your physical reality is up to the ego structure, and it starts to take on that job when it is not built for that job. It starts to burden itself, stress itself, and in that way, it starts to break down. It starts to do wildly incongruous, wildly irrational things, because it is taking on this burden from a perspective of fear. It's going to choose those things that are based on survival mode. It's going to reinforce itself with the idea that it must survive at all costs. Otherwise, your life will end. So the ego structure does everything it can to take on this tremendous burden. Let's all give the poor little ego a break before the ego breaks down. Now is the timing that you have finally gotten to the point where the light is bright enough, where enough of you are seeking that light within yourselves, that you are adding that to the collective reality and giving each other better opportunities with your collective momentum to know that there is a level of reality, a level of yourselves, a level of your whole being that is more than capable of reconnecting with you, that you deserve to reconnect with and deserve to lighten your load, to lighten up on yourselves, take the load off, drop the baggage, and get on your way through life in an easy and effortless, creative manner. This is the time and the age on your planet where you're now realizing that, so congratulations. Now, we will share something with you to further strengthen the idea of the many different ways that you are starting to attract yourselves back to your own higher minds. In these conversations that you are having with us, whether they be in this group structure or in one-to-one scenarios, doesn't matter. When you are speaking with us, you are actually speaking with your own higher mind. You are not speaking directly with us at all, ever. What we have done to aid and assist you by your invitation, what we are doing thus then is giving you an excuse to talk to your own higher mind by tricking you into thinking you're talking to something else. Well, the idea here is that yes, while obviously we are involved, the actual communication you are having with us is actually the communication with your own higher mind, but wrapped in our vibrational flavor, in order to allow you to use us as a permission slip to give yourself permission to actually communicate with your own higher minds in a relaxed way and get your assumptions and your beliefs and your definitions and your ego structure out of the way so that you will allow yourself that communication. So congratulations on being so clever as to invite us to help you to trick yourselves into speaking to your higher minds. So the idea is to understand that you really don't have a whole mind until you form a reconnection and a relationship and a communication style with the higher mind that allows you of functioning like a whole being. Now, imagination has been given as part of the personality structure to allow it to understand that it always has access to the higher mind. Imagination is the conduit, the pipeline to the higher mind and from the higher mind. But again, when the ego structure becomes so crystallized, so densified that it thinks it's the one in charge and has to figure every single little thing out, it will not trust the imagination. It will shut the door to the imagination because it seems unreal, superfluous. But what it has done by doing that is it has constricted the flow of communication coming from the higher mind that is actually the kind of information the physical personality needs in order to actually relax itself and move on through life in an effortless way. The idea, again, is to understand that once you form a relationship with the higher mind, once you form a balanced relationship with it, imagination is the conduit through which inspiration will come, in which you will allow the physical personality to know that it is in constant communication with the person up on the boat, and that it will never be guided into a crevasse, it will never be guided into the mouth of a shark. It will always be guided straight toward the horizon that represents the dream and the theme that the personality chose to explore, and all the transitions can happen quite magically when those lines of communication are open. So, now, many individuals have wondered, well, if the physical ego thinks it's in charge and attempts to shut out all other forms of communication because it doesn't trust them, coming from the higher mind, how do I know the difference between when the physical mind is telling me, oh, this is representative of your excitement, and when the higher mind is telling me this is representative of your true excitement? How can I tell the difference? All right, fair question. This requires paying some attention to yourself, really paying attention to the true feelings. It does require at least a modicum of willingness, to tell the ego to shut the hell up. At least just for a moment, so that I can hear my true self. At least take a breath, at least take a pause, at least stop and wonder whether or not you are actually being shown something that is representative of a fear or something that is representative of a joy. Because we understand that when you're in that confused state, anxiety can actually seem like excitement. And excitement can actually seem like anxiety. But this is why it's so critical to take that pause, to allow yourself to at least be in charge enough, be willing enough to tell the ego to be quiet for a moment so that you can get in touch with your inner being and tell the difference in the quality of the vibration of the emotion you are feeling at that moment. If you are quiet for that moment and willing to be open to be shown what it actually is, you will be able to tell the difference. You'll be able to develop the discernment of the difference between the vibration of fear and doubt and the vibration of joy and certainty. You will be able to tell the difference because that ability to tell the difference is built into you. It's built into your consciousness. But if the ego is making too much noise, if it's not allowing you to stop and think, it does that specifically to prevent you from being able to tell the difference. Because it's afraid that if you tell the difference, it won't be in charge anymore, and to the ego that means death. Because it doesn't believe the higher self really exists. So, it's all about finding that space of balance and peace within yourself And then you will know whether it comes from the physical negative ego or from the higher self. But you need that moment of quietude. You have to be willing to let it be all right to not know what's going on at the moment. You have to be willing to say, I don't know what's happening here, instead of just assuming it's this or that or the other thing. So anytime you find yourself in doubt about what you're experiencing, take that moment and say, I don't know what's happening, and that's okay. And in that moment where you have actually admitted that you don't know what's going on, you can find the balance, the quiet, the peace, and the stillness that will actually then start to allow you to be more sensitive to the quality of the vibration of what's going on and give you more capability of having more insight as to what you are experiencing and what you are dealing with in terms of the physical mind or the higher mind. So, that's the first step in forming the relationship, in reconnecting, in remembering who you are as a whole person. That's the first step. As soon as you allow yourself to be all right in that balance point, you can allow the natural senses you were created with to begin to fill that stillness, to fill that little void of quietness, and they will begin to be heard. But you have to be quiet to hear them at first, because they have been suppressed for so long in your society that at first it will only seem like a whisper, but you'll recognize it. And as soon as you really start paying attention to what they are, you can start to guide yourself with them in the direction of your preferences. And as you do that, bit by bit, and this may take some practice, it's all right, bit by bit, you will start to gain more discernment as to exactly what vibration is representative of what, and you will start to pacify the ego into understanding that it's not going to die, it's not going to be annihilated, that in fact this is what it really wants, because it is tired of laboring under such stressful circumstances, it is tired of bearing the weight, and you're going to take the load off and you're going to bring it along. It's not going to go anywhere. It is your friend. You love it. It is serving you. It is designed for a purpose of focusing you in the physical reality experience you wanted to have, in the theme you want to explore, and you cannot live without it. Literally, you cannot live without it. Does this make sense? Having said that, we may now, if you wish, open to questions and exchange.
Okay, thank you, Bashar.
You are welcome.